$600 million. $600 million given to the media over 5 years as tax rebates. Okay, you're probably wondering, $600 million? That's a lot of money. Well, let's go into it and let's see how that's being doled out and let's see what that entails. $600 million in federal funding for media, a turning point in the plight of newspapers in Canada. Everyone in journalism should be doing a victory lap around their building right now, says Stuart Thompson. The measures add up to a total 5-year cost of $595 million, although the government's fiscal update offers more than 10 times more support for media than the 2018 budget, more than 10 times more support in 1 year. It still falls short of what some media advocates had hoped for, but of course, details will be announced in the 2019 budget. Now, this is really, really clever. Okay, at this point, it's really clever because they're giving this money, the $600 million, but they're giving it away as in the form of tax rebates, tax credits. So this information becomes confidential information because it's tax information. So let's take a look over here. So this is income tax measures to support journalism. All right, so this is from the government website, and you got to bear in mind they got all this, jargon, and QCJO is the key one over here. Qualified Canadian Journalism Organization. You got to be a QCJO. You got to be a qualified Canadian journalism organization for you to be eligible to these income tax measures. It's amazing to me to be here, okay, to be looking at this kind of stuff when the media is supposed to be doing this job. And I'm supposed to be writing code. I'm supposed to be programming away, but there you go. This seems to be an upside down world. If you like this kind of content, please go to wcfreedom.com right over here and subscribe. Get on the newsletter so you don't miss a beat. Highly appreciate it. November 2018, Andrew Coyne. Liberal $600 million aid package for news media will irrevocably politicize the press. Of course, no one would be so crude as to attach any explicit quid pro quo. No government would be so foolish as to take a direct hand in doling out the money or to demand favorable coverage in return. On the other hand, you can't just give out tax credits to everybody, not in a world where anyone can post to the web and call himself a publisher. So someone has to choose, but who? That's a great question. So who decides who gets that $600 million? Well, you're going to see here in just a moment that basically this went along. They created an advisory board, created a second board, and they just basically, those people decide. That's how they're done. They're chosen. They're selected. The government's blackly brilliant answer: an independent panel of journalists will determine who is eligible to receive the government's cash. Of course, make the inmates fight amongst themselves. Let decisions about which journalists get to keep their jobs be made by other journalists. Who can blame the government then? That's clever. I like that. So while one group of journalists is scrambling to stay on side with the panel's government-mandated definition of core journalism standards and professional journalism, another group will be angling to be appointed to this panel, since that's where the real power will lie. Of course, right? Once you're on that panel, once you're on that board, you can decide who gets the money and how much of it they get. So that after that first board convenes and they put out their recommendations for this QCJO, Qualified Canadian Journalist Organization, and the rest, they appoint 5 people to this independent advisory board. Well, you got 5 people here deciding who gets $600 million, which media is going to get funded. It just smacks of incredible opportunities for corruption. All the news your taxes can buy. This is Tom Korski, also happens to be Blacklock's Reporter's managing editor. It's insulting to think that journalists can be bought off, says Finance Minister Bill Morneau. The Conservatives think Canadian journalists can be bought. We do not, said PM Justin Trudeau. It says here, under the Conflict of Interest Act, MPs got to report all gifts of over $200. Who thinks parliamentarians are for sale for a couple of $100? Parliament does. Who thinks publishers cannot be bought off with $595 million? Nobody. Claims ridiculous. Then we've got John Miller, professor emeritus at Ryerson University and ex-foreign editor of the Toronto Star. Direct aid to people who report the news, that's dangerous. This constitutes one of the gravest threats to freedom of the press that I have seen in this country. He made his remarks in May 29th testimony at the Senate Finance Committee. I've been in newsrooms where big advertisers exert enormous influence over news judgments. It happens even in the best of places, said Professor Miller. I've seen these kind of programs, these kinds of government subsidies, these programs, these bursaries, whatever you want to call them, these handouts, corporate welfare in the tech industry. I'm going to get into it in other videos. I'm a capitalist. I've always been a programmer as a side business, opened up this company that's doing graphic novels, comic books, because I just love comics. Right over here, we got Vestige. Take a look at that. There you go in the light. And we got BULLETMAKER. BULLETMAKER is available now. Post-Apocalyptic, Pre-Armageddon, action fantasy. Best way to support us. Check it out. The link is in the description. And right over here, WCFreedom.com. Make sure you're signed up to the newsletter so you never miss a beat. And please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for your time. Hail, brethren.